listen, we've deployed all these OKRs and look at our performance. What is wrong with these people? Like, it's so clear.
Plan is not a strategy. Product roadmap not a strategy. OKRs is not a strategy. How do we do strategy?
Strategy is making...
In this episode, I sat down with Roger L. Martin, one of the most influential business strategists and author of 13 books, including The Game-Changing Playing to Win and A New Way to Think, and over 1,000 articles under his belt. We discussed why the strategy and how to do strategy and why product roadmap and OKRs are not a strategy. Roger also shares the secret why so many Procter Gamble alumni becomes top CEOs. Don't miss out. We're giving away 20 copies of Playing to Win and New Way to Think, but you'll need to stick around until the end and learn how to enter. First of all, welcome to Dubai. We're honored to have you here. But what was the most surprising thing that you found about Dubai so far?
I think it's just how, for such a long time, it's just been going forward, forward, forward. We like having high tea at atmosphere, and which provides this ability to sort of see what's happening to Dubai, and we take pictures every year. And we've got now 12 years of history, and it just keeps expanding and growing. And so it's this very lively city. It's a bit how we think of Hong Kong, although Hong Kong is now not as lively. But in the good old days, Hong Kong was this city that never sleeps, always action happening, buildings going up, a care for architecture, and the like, and Dubai feels like sort of the Hong Kong of the Middle East, to me at least.
So I was reading an article on the New York, and they mentioned that 10% of CEOs of S&P 500, they were ex-Procter & Gamble, and it's a big number.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because you work so much with Procter & Gamble, what do you think is the reason for this?
Yeah. I think it goes back, honestly, I think it goes back to 1931, right? Which is when Neil McElroy, who was then junior, but later grew to be the CEO, introduced the concept of brand management. He wrote a memo arguing that we should be organized around brands. And that created the brand management system that lots of others have replicated, but it's getting close to 100 years old at Procter & Gamble. And what that meant, I think, is that relatively young people, organizationally, would have responsibility for everything about a brand. And to me, that means that they recognize that each brand needs a strategy. You can't just have a Procter strategy and then everybody else is just sort of executing it, because, Pampers diapers is so different from Ariel detergent, which is different from Olay, which is different from Crest, etc. You can't sort of say, well, they're going to be the same strategy, because it's different customer sets, it's different competitors, Colgate on this one, L'Oreal on that one. And so I think what happened is that there were many more opportunities early in their career for P&G managers to express the kind of strategic chops that you have to be the CEO of a company. And so when somebody who's maybe running the diaper business or even the Pampers brand gets recruited away to be the CEO of a company, they don't have to say, oh my God, what do you do when you're a CEO? They say, well, I was kind of like a mini CEO. I didn't have public shareholders. That was the CEO of Procter, but I had to make all these kind of decisions and the like. And so P&G now has like $25 billion brands. That's 25 people who have to have big company CEO like capabilities and skills. And so I think that's why it's a magnitude of people who are ready for the challenge of running a big company. And I'd also like to believe that in part Procter has made this huge investment in strategy. it's I've been I've been working with him on strategy since 1986, and it's one of the gratifying things for me is when a CEO of a major company like Paul Pullman would say publicly that Roger Martin taught me how to do strategy when he was running the European laundry business for Procter Gamble or Bracken Darrell of Logitech, and now he's at VF. These guys say, the discipline you taught me about strategy way back when, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 15 years ago, was helpful. That's very great. Jim Hackett at Steelcase, and then Ford, all of these guys. So I'd like to believe that their attention to strategy as a discipline is part of the success.
Oh God, I want to dive into what is strategy and how to do strategy. But before this interview, I called my college professor back from the college days, and I asked him, I was so excited to meet you, and I was like, I'm meeting Roger L. Martin, what do you think I should ask him? You wrote so many books, but especially the book around strategy has been phenomenal to me, but his reaction was puzzling to me. He was like, he's a very controversial figure, and we don't really teach Roger L. Martin teaching, and better go to Mike Porter, 5 Forces, Vero analysis, SWOT analysis. Why your teaching is controversial and even sometimes illegal in certain academic settings?
Yeah, it is interesting. As you probably know from my career, I was a business guy, strategy consultant for a decade and a half before I got recruited to become the dean of a business school, and so I came to the world of academia kind of with my eyes wide open and with a naive view, and my naive view was that this is the home of ideas and great creativity and the like. You can do and think whatever you want, like academics have academic freedom and they can do whatever they want. And after being in that world, I ended up staying in that world for 21 total years.
Oh, wow.
I come away saying it's one of the more restrictive, repressive worlds I've ever been associated with. And so you have to a greater extent than I ever imagined, adhere to the norms of your discipline. And you shouldn't do breakthrough work that in some sense tears down something that's been established. And it's very Thomas Kuhn, the structure of scientific revolutions had it right. There's your kind of standard normal kind of theory, and people do normal science. Well, in the business school business, they have coalesced around something called the resource-based view of the firm, and VIRO. And unless you commit, are willing to say, I serve the resource-based view of the firm. One, you can't get a job in a strategy department of a top 50 U.S. business school. You can't. If they asked you, well, do you believe in RBV? If you say, well, I have some questions, you won't get hired. That's full stop. So my view of strategy is not consistent with or in fealty to the resource-based view of the firm. In fact, I think it's a very, very crummy way to look at strategy. I've only seen resource-based view of the firm used. So I've been consulting for 42 years. I've only seen it once.
Oh, wow.
A mid-level person at Ford Motor Company when I was there had a slide in a deck that said, maybe we could use the resource-based view of the firm on this issue. 42 years, one time. Now, it hasn't been around for all those 42 years, but it's been around for most of those 42 years. So why do they not want to teach my stuff? Because it doesn't agree with the core theory that you must agree with to be a strategy professor in a major business school now. And does it bother me? Not a whole lot, because it absolutely dominates RBV in the world of practice.
Yes.
And if you ask the question, which do I care more about? Is it the academic world or the world of practice? It would be the world of practice. Do I not care about it? No, I'm sort of sad. I'm sad that all these students are taught something that when they go out into the world and they say, we should do a VIRO, and their managers are like, what the hell is that? And why would I want to do that? Whereas if I think they go and say, we need to do a choice cascade, we need to figure out where to play, how to win, I think most often they get, yeah, no, exactly. I think it's unclear now, and we've got to really rethink that, blah, blah, blah. So that's sad. But I was not allowed to teach playing to win at the Rotman School.
And you were the dean.
I was the dean.
And you were a very popular dean as well.
Very popular, and because of that, quite powerful, because I'd really, changed the school and everything. But each department, we call them areas, but they're often called departments. Each department has control over what goes in the curriculum and the strategy management, a strategic management area, as it was called at the Rotman School. Like, nope, we ain't teaching this stuff. No sirree.
I've interviewed so many people, and when I ask about management schools, and they're like, Mahmoud, don't waste your time management school. Go learn an actual skill. I'm like, what do you mean management business strategy is an actual skill? I'm like, no, go learn coding, go learn something that design, an actual skill, and business something that you get while you build a company, for example.
I mean, there's a lot of truth to the advice you're given. What I would say, if I tried to make the strongest case for management education, the case I'd make would be every discipline has a language system. You're a computer engineer, right?
Yeah.
You had to learn a language system with a bunch of terms that if you didn't know it, you can't do computer engineering. And so there is a language of management, balance sheet, income statement, ratios and the like, that is important for you to learn and gives you a leg up. If just like probably you could learn a bunch of the things that you kind of learned in computer engineering by just practicing coding and people teaching you to learn a bunch of them. You just do it slowly, and you'd make a lot of errors on the way. Just like anybody could probably learn to be a doctor without going to medical school. They'd just kill a lot of patients before getting good at it. You would write a lot of crappy code that
that's true.
do it. So I think it has, because business is so important, kind of learning the language of business, learning the language of finance, what's a bond, all of that foundational stuff has utility. It's just and you'd have to tell me, and it would be interesting in your thoughts, if computer engineering education taught you a holistic skill. What I think is missing from business is it doesn't, right? As the great Peter Drucker, right, said, there are no marketing decisions, there are no tax decisions, there are no accounting decisions, there are only business decisions. Yet we take the education and say, we'll teach you a bunch of stuff about accounting as if nothing else exists. We'll teach you something about marketing as if nothing else exists. We'll teach you about strategy as if nothing else exists. And then we assume that you can put it all together. They can't. Only probably 5 or 10% of students can put it all together on their own. And what I would say is good management education would say, we're teaching you a holistic skill to be a manager, to be able to make managerial decisions, to run a company. Now, you're going to have to learn about accounting to do that, but here's how it relates to that. You're going to have to learn about marketing. Here's how it relates to all of that. They forget the here's how it relates to all of that part. Did they do that more holistically in your computer engineering education, or did you have to be the integrator?
Unfortunately, and even though I went to a really nice college,
Yeah.
they did not.
Yeah.
I had to learn triple integration, and I'm a computer major. We had to learn really, really tough things that did not really correlate to the real world.
Interesting.
So I'm a computer engineer. I need to learn how to build an application, how to talk to customers. I never had a course into how to talk to customer, how to validate an idea. Those are the most important skills that I had to learn the hard way.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why I had to read all of those books. But I think for me, the easiest way to build those skills is build a side project.
Yes.
So build a side
Yeah.
project. You would underestimate the number of skills that you have to master in order to build an app and launch it.
Yes.
There is so much things that get to practice. And unfortunately, colleges today, they don't teach any of that.
Yeah. So so you've got the same problem in your discipline as we
Yeah.
we have in ours, which is the hard thing and the most valuable thing is integration, is being able to integrate all the pieces together. And because it's so hard, the academic world says, that's too hard. We will teach the piece parts and hope that they can put it together. I've always believed you can teach the integration. And so that's what would be necessary. If business education taught you how to integrate the piece parts, it would be enormously valuable. You would just have to do it at whatever the cost. But increasingly now people are saying, gee, I'm already out working. You need work experience to get into an MBA program, or at least a good MBA program. I'm already got a salary. I'd have to give up my salary, and then I'd have to pay them a whole bunch of money. Maybe I'd have to give out a couple $100,000 of salary for 2 years, pay them a couple $100,000 in tuition, books, room and board. The heck with that. I'm just going to go out and learn it myself. People would not be saying that if they knew you could go to that program and take all the piece part things that you already understand and say, here's how you integrate those together.
But again, just one on the last point. Have a more pessimistic view on that is because in colleges, the teachers, they never have, real world experience where they actually build companies, they actually build successful products. So that's why they teach us things about the book for us to be a college professors. They don't teach us to become an actual shift makers.
Yes. No, I think that's absolutely true. And I think there's a place for both. So, when I was dean of the Rotman school, one of the, I think, contributions I made as a dean is I figured out how to blend fabulous people from business who had an interest in coming and teaching a course or a couple of courses or maybe even more with the academics, the ones who generally didn't have any business experience, although we had a handful that were out consulting and doing interesting things, but only a handful. And we had a bunch of, in that first category of business people who taught, we were a crummy business school and we treated them badly, and so we didn't have good ones. I made a real effort to slowly but surely weed out the ones that weren't so good, and then went into the business community and got some fabulous people to come in and teach. And I think, and you have sort of quantitative data on some of this stuff because you have to bid for second year courses in the MBA program. You have to bid points because everybody wants the same points. The highest bid for courses consistently were several of the practitioner courses that were taught by all of them were taught by ex-CEOs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I think you can blend the two. Like when you have enough of that, right, then students say, good. I'm getting practical. Like there's the one that's the highest bid for. Well, the two highest bid for were one called the top manager's perspective and getting it done.
Yes.
Those were the top two, both taught by a sort of a more of big corporation CEO, ran multi-billion-dollar companies. The other was taught by a very successful entrepreneur in the financial services space. But if students got enough of that, they said, okay, I can take that theory, and it's good to know the underlying theory behind this aspect of marketing. Then I can go over and take David or Brendan's course and figure out how to put the pieces together. So this is why I think it's not a bridge too far for business schools to figure out how to blend the more narrowly based academic disciplinary stuff with the broader based stuff, but they're run almost exclusively by people in the former category who don't love, they sometimes just fear actually the academics or the non-academics, and these business executives were delighted. Like I just had one of them just retired from teaching after teaching forever, and he wrote me this very, very heartfelt thank you for introducing him. He said this was one of the best, if not the best, experience of my life is teaching these students. So it was lovely, but it all was based on how I treated them. And I didn't treat them as second-class citizens. Oh, you're not tenure track? You're not tenure stream? Yeah. No, I treated them as different, exalted in a different way. My great professors who published lots of articles and were famous, and they were exalted in my eyes. And these executives who had taken the time to figure out how to distill their knowledge, not just tell war stories, but distill their knowledge. Here's what a top manager has to be paying attention to and thinking about. That's David Beatty. You got to think about this and this and this, and you got to have this kind of skills, and here's how you do it. That to me is to be exalted as well. But you need that environment to attract the great ones. Otherwise, it's a downward spiral. You treat them like crap. You get crappy ones. They tell war stories to students. Students sort of say, whatever, I can get war stories anywhere, so all I can have is this academic stuff. And that, unfortunately, is the world of most modern business schools. I must say, even though I'm not a huge fan of my alma mater, Harvard Business School, they do the best job of any American business school at integrating ex-CEOs. The Bill Georges of the world are quite famous there and beloved by the students, and they are quite exalted. They don't get looked down on by the rest of the tenure stream faculty of HBS. So I give them credit for that.
So Roger, what is strategy?
Well, strategy is making an integrated set of choices that positions you in a way that compels customers to take the action you wish they did.
I love this description so much because it's so simple and made sense. You have no idea how much I've been in interviews and someone asks me what is strategy, and I always give them a half answer.
Yes.
How did you were able to give a concise answer?
A lot of it has to do with practice. But I've one of the things that is somewhat unique about me is I spend so much of my life working with companies on strategy, and both working with them and teaching them a strategy. So real companies and real situations. And I'm willing to spend time to distill that and write it down. And there just aren't that many folks out there who do both, and that is a distillation. That definition is a distillation of all my work, and it's changed over time. And the compelling desired customer action is only something I've been using for maybe the last 4 or 5 years because people would ask, well, what choices and why? And I came to understand, well, you control a whole bunch of things. You make choices about a whole bunch of things you control. You control whatever, how many employees to hire and how much to pay them and how many square feet of offices to have, how many factories to build, how big a marketing campaign to run, how much to spend on R&D, all those choices. But there's one big thing that you don't have any control over. What customers take money out of their pockets and hand it to you rather than that other guy over there. So that is, right, that's the dependent variable, right? And so you need to make a set of choices that cause them to do the thing you want them to do, which is to buy your offering, whether it's a product or service, at a price that enables you to make more of it and earn a return for your shareholders. So it's just been that distillation. I've always known it's choices. I know they have to be integrated, right? Because I hate laundry lists where people have a list of our strategy is the following 10 initiatives, and I'm like, no, it isn't. Your strategy is something other than that list. Your strategy is to suck, right? So I've always known it's about choices and they have to be integrated, but I've sort of now distilled it down to here's what the choices do. They compel desired customer action.
Before into dive how to do strategy, I just want to understand something.
Yeah.
When I first started work, I went to my manager. He assigned me to do a strategy.
Yes.
So I presented with him a plan. And he was like, Mahmoud, this is not a strategy. This is a plan. I was like, yeah, the same thing. That I made a product roadmap. He was like, Mahmoud, this is a product roadmap again. This is not a strategy. And I stumbled upon your work. But what's the difference?
Yeah, so I think of a plan or a product roadmap as a laudable set of initiatives, right? That none of them, and I'm sure that your manager wasn't saying, this is stupid, Mama, that's stupid. He said, no, those are all sensible, but they don't integrate together to produce a particular outcome that you have stated. And I suspect your manager was saying, yes, but Mahmoud, we are competing against these three players. They're the incumbents, maybe, and you were saying, and we want to get into that business. Which kind of customers are we going after? What do they need that these guys aren't producing? And then what does that mean? Would if we define that, would you have the same product roadmap? Would we do the same things in the same order? And you'd probably go back and look at that and say, oh no, that number 1 and 8 aren't consistent on my list of things to do. Number 1 and 8 aren't consistent with what we want them to do. We've got to do this other thing, or we've got to have a tighter link between numbers 4 and 5. So it's that integration with this specific stated purpose. Like I kind of think about it a little bit like billiards, right? Like if you hit a ball and it accidentally goes into a pocket, it gets put back on the table. You've got to say, I'm hitting that ball into that pocket. Then people will give you credit that you desired that. So in strategy, you have to say, what is that outcome, that customer outcome in the thing we don't control, right? What is that we're after, and how is it that this set of things that we control, if we do in this way, will produce that thing we want to have happen? That's a strategy.
You wrote a very nice article on how KPI can be used with your 5 questions. But I've worked with a company when I asked, what is your strategy? And they gave me the list of 5 KPIs, and what I need to do is impact those 5 KPIs. Why KPIs is not a strategy as well?
Well, it's just one of those delusional things. It's overtaken Silicon Valley completely.
OKRs, yes.
OKRs, or KPIs elsewhere, but in Silicon Valley, it's always OKR. And like for me, it's sort of laughable, and maybe it shouldn't be, but it's just sort of, so you think because you want something, it'll happen?
When you say it this way.
Yeah, like, I want that beautiful girl to go out on a date with me.
Yeah.
Do you think sort of saying that and thinking that is going to make it likely? No, maybe you have to get a nice suit, be nice to her for a period of time, have interesting conversations, whatever, and then maybe she'll go on a date with you. But this is no. And I see this all the time where people are like quite despondent. They'll show me their OKRs.
Yes.
They say, listen, we've deployed all these OKRs and look at our performance. What is wrong with these people? Like, it's so clear. And I'm like, yeah, but your offering is not compelling. So the fact that you need to increase sales effectiveness and have 3 times as much sold per customer call as you did before, that and $5.99 will get you a decaf latte at Starbucks, right? It's just, but it's religion. But this is why people just often do not go to first principles, and they don't ask the question, how would that thing happen?
Yeah.
Like, I get that's an objective. And I think we can all here in this room agree, that's like not stupid. It sort of makes sense. It's something that a reasonable person would want. What produces that outcome? Oh, customers buying a bunch of our stuff at good prices. Okay, good. Okay, now we've got that. That O requires 100,000 customers to pay us, $2,000 a customer. Good. We've got that. Well, do they have no choice? Oh, no, they have choices. What are their choices? Not buy anything at all, buy from this competitor, buy from this competitor. Okay, those are their choices. How could we compel them not to do one of those 3 things? Like, that's, to me, going to the fundamentals, and those are the fundamental questions you got to ask about strategy, rather than having these vacuous delusions that sort of say naming something that we want will make that more likely to happen.
So plan is not a strategy, but like Rotman, not a strategy. OKRs,
Not a strategy.
our favorite, is not a strategy. How do we do strategy?
Well, I think it has to be considered an iterative process. So that is one of the things, and you would probably know this from the engineering world, which is, I think the engineering world is not as fond of iteration as it is of doing it. Although it's getting better, I think, on that front. So first, you have to think of it as an iterative process, where what you're trying to do is figure out what you would like to have happen, your winning aspiration. We'd like customers to do this, and then imagine what customers, where, how to win, how to do that better than competitors, and what capabilities and management systems. But you might end up having to say in the middle of it, that thing we wanted to have happen, either that's just ain't going to happen, and so we have to change what we'd like to have happen, or maybe we weren't hoping for enough and we can figure out a way to do more. So you revisit, and you keep revisiting these 5 elements. What's your winning aspiration? Where are you going to play? How are you going to win? What must-have capabilities have to be in place? And what are the enabling management systems that will build and maintain the must-have capabilities to win where we've chosen to play to meet our winning aspiration? So you go down, I call it a cascade. You go down the cascade and back up and down and back up. and all it is about saying, what would a set of choices be that I could say would compellingly cause customers to take the action necessary to meet our winning aspiration. And it's uncomplicated in one sense. It's only 5 questions, and they're pretty straightforward questions, like where to play, where on the playing field or battlefield, whatever metaphor you like, are we going to plop ourselves down and engage on? That's not complicated. It is complex in the sense that it requires this iteration, and it requires you to be thinking about the other 4 boxes while you're paying attention to one. I think of it as you have to be a little bit like a painter, right? There's a background, forests and trees and whatever, and there's a foreground, a carriage or something, and if you paint the carriage in the foreground or the horse in the foreground without any conception of the background, and then you put the background in, people are going to say, well, that's kind of like looks weird. Or if you start with the background and then put they're going to say, that looks weird. You have to sort of be paying attention to foreground and background. And in the foreground is one box, and in the background are 4 other boxes all the time. And you have to, and then say, okay, now this box goes to the background, this comes to the foreground. Is this looking like a great piece of art or not? And if the answer is it doesn't really fit, then you've got to say, okay, well, let's go back to that box, and how can we change that? That's the part that requires a little bit of patience, and it sort of requires, from my experience, clients tend to feel it requires quite a lot of mental energy. Right, it's hard to keep those things all in mind, and often many of them would rather not. So they sort of, when I come in to talk strategy for them, they say, "Oh God, I got to get rested up to put my thinking cap on." But that's the nature of it. The payoff, right, is in that all your actions are worthwhile, as opposed to I just see in most corporations most of the time, people are engaging in all sorts of action and activity that leads to nothing good. So the waste level in strategy and in management is very high. And I'm like Edward Deming. Yeah, Edward Deming is a hero of mine. It's just figure out how to systematically remove wastage from your system. Systematically. Right? Not, and it's design in quality rather than inspect at the end, right? Inspecting at the end is sort of, in strategy is, okay, we've got this strategy. Oops, it's not working. Okay, we've invested lots of time, energy, money kind of into it. Now we got to go back to the start. That's inspecting it in the end. No, it's having a process that designs quality in along the way to reduce efforts and resources that are just thrown away with no chance of succeeding.
I mean, I want to be practical. I want the audience to get actual things that can implement today. Let me try this exercise with you.
Yes.
I want to build an educational platform. I'm just gonna brainstorm 3 questions, and I will stop. I will check in with you.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
very intimidating.
No.
Gonna do this with the person who wrote the book himself. So let's say my winning aspiration is I want to create an educational platform where people can learn skills online. That's my winning aspiration. Where to play? I want to play in English-speaking countries, mostly in the Americas. How to win? I want to have the most comprehensive amount of courses there is I can include in my platform. Just
Okay.
gotta check in with you.
Yes.
How was my strategy so far?
Not bad. I would just ask some more questions. I would say for where to play. You told me the customers. I'm kind of interested in what vertical stage do you want to be in? Do you want to distribute directly to them? Is this one that's going to be a self-serve kind of platform, or are you going to distribute through other educational materials providers and be sort of in the background? I would say, yeah, what's your assumption on that in your where to play?
So where to play, let me niche down where to play. I want to target business professionals from 20 to 35 years old working in technology, developing certain skills, which is programming, developing ability to interview people.
Good.
Okay.
Good. No, that's not specific. But are you going to distribute directly to them or through some intermediary? Do you have a channel, or is this going to be an internet platform that's kind of self-serve, like Facebook or
It will
or the
be
like?
self-serve.
Yeah, self-serve. Okay. Okay.
So that's very interesting. So because we double clicked on where to play,
Yeah.
now how to win is much clearer.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I don't have the amount of resources to create every courses available.
Yes.
Now I know exactly what kind of courses I need to create for those specific where to play.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how to win, as I need to develop courses that either will be certified by Google, or they have a good name behind them, or they'll develop actual skills. But then the winning aspiration have to change as well. Then I have to go all the way to winning aspiration.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then so you're getting it exactly. You're a good student. So then on how to win, I would probably be honing in on, okay, so the great thing about self-serve is you don't have to spend all sorts of money on a big sales force to go out and visit people and try and sell them. They more or less find you. Okay, so that's a nice thing about self-serve. The tough thing about self-serve is they got to find you, and there's a hell of a lot of things to find out there in the world. So how in your how to win are you going to set yourself up for being findable? Because if the search cost for you is too high, even if your product is good, they're never gonna find their way to them. What will make you more findable and more compellingly so?
So the first thought that came to my mind is I'm gonna spend so much money on advertisement, B2C product, that I remembered I don't have that amount of money.
Yes.
So maybe a better approach to have a B2B to C system where we go to companies and tell them, hey, we can upskill your employees, and these are the courses that you can have, and we can work with you guys to create a course that will help you specifically as well.
I like that, and it's interesting enough, the strategy we used at the Rotman School for non-degree executive education. Right,
Oh,
not like an EMBA is degree executive education, but a non-degree executive education program would be training for directors. But the tricky thing for that is the costs of finding people is so high, it's prohibitive. So what did we do? I instituted a B2B2C approach. We would go to some interested party, the Association of Police Chiefs of Canada.
Oh, wow.
Because it turns out that police chiefs now can run big businesses. The Toronto Police Department is $5 billion. Right? It's a huge company. How much business education do you think a police chief gets before becoming a police chief?
I'm assuming zero.
Zero.
A police chief is a managerial position.
They have no formal training. They work their way up and do some learning on the job. So we went to the Canadian Association of Police Chiefs and said, we can create a program that gives this sort of overview and the basics of education and management and leadership. That's all non-policing, right? They get all the police, like how to fight crime, like all of that. They've got massive amounts, and very good actually. When we looked into it, very well thought through formal education in policing, if you will.
Oh, wow.
And so we'll design the course for you. All you have to do is get us cadres, cohorts of police, and they're like, died and gone to heaven. This is awesome.
Yeah.
This is awesome, and it's been a monumentally successful program because
wow.
we have zero customer acquisition costs. Zero.
Yes.
Right? Our costs are just designing and putting on the program. The seats get occupied with people that somebody else put there on our behalf, and we have a successful program for directors done in the same way with the Institute of Corporate Directors in Canada. We have another pharmacy one and the like. So I shut down B2C, non-degree executive education. I shut it down.
Too expensive.
We're not too expensive. The cost of customer acquisition is too high, but B2B to C has been an awesome business. So I like your first inclination when I asked the question is essentially an answer that was not dissimilar to mine. Reduce customer acquisition costs by having somebody who's got mutual interests in helping you out. And the same, I said, we're going to do corporate programs. We had a huge program where Bank of Montreal, one of the big banks in Canada, doing all of their leadership training. We didn't think for a moment about how to fill the seats. That wasn't our job. That was somebody else's job. And Bank of Montreal was delighted to work with us because we we solved a bunch of problems for them. They wanted to have a great education program. They wanted to co-design with us. We were friendly co-designers. They wanted to co-run it. That's great, but you fill the seats, and it's a giant company, so they could always fill the seats. So every year, you do another program full of the next cadre of people. So those are the kinds of things I would do practically. Is I love what you did, which is you gave a top level overview, winning aspiration, where to play, how to win, and then I say take that, drill deeper, and just drill deeper until it feels like, wow, this could be a real win, and then you need to ask the. We didn't go into it, but the capabilities management systems, and you keep filling those in to make sure that you're not sort of saying, here's how we're going to win, and then you look what capabilities would be necessary. Do we have them? No, we don't. So you want to keep doing that, but that's the practical way to do it. Don't try to be perfect at the start. Lay out a decent winning aspiration, a general where to play, a general how to win, and then ask, how could I make that more compelling, more integrated, more fits together?
I mean, one of my favorite questions is where to play and how to win, and you dubbed it as the heart of strategy.
Yes.
And this is so impactful. So back to our example, where to play from 20 to 35 years old, business professionals, how to win, which is we're going to create courses specifically tailored for them, programming courses, to upskill, and we're going to go for B2C. You mentioned once, if someone came to you with just answer for where to play and how to win, it's not really a strategy.
Yeah.
It's still fiction. Why the next two questions are so important?
Well, I think they're this super helpful reality check. It's is that and you talked earlier, you like practical versus theoretical. In some sense, when it's just where to play, how to win, it's theoretical. Mm-hmm. When you say, but here's capabilities that we can develop or have, and others can't or won't follow, and here's a set of management systems that'll make sure we keep that up, then you've got the reality check on it. And again, it's not an on-off switch. It's like, ooh, this is the weakest part of the where to play, how to win, which you did a little bit of that already to say, oh, constrict that where to play a little bit so that it's tighter, so that we do have the capabilities for that. We don't have the capabilities to create educational materials for every educational subject on the face of the planet for everybody, but for this kind of person with this set of skills, that we could build the capabilities that would be hard for somebody else to match entirely.
So what are the must-have capabilities to serve how to win that will serve where to play.
Yes.
Which is we need to have courses or college professors that are very well versed in those specific material.
Yeah.
The systems, I think there where OKRs can play a
Yeah.
role,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
KPIs. And the last
Absolutely.
question.
Yeah. No, they can. So I am all for clear, if you will, objectives or performance indicators. What I just say is that all they can do is help you when you've got a good strategy, kind of help people and you keep track of what they're doing, right? So I'm not a big believer that kind of setting stretch goals will make them more likely to happen. I'm more believing that if you have a great strategy and you tell the person who is working on it, well, here's your role in it, and here's how you should measure yourself. Because we think if you get there to there, and Mahmoud over there gets to that, and Sally over there gets to that, it'll all add up to us getting the right. Because people generally, I have this general view that most people are good and hardworking. Small number of bad people who are lazy. Small number. You should weed them out and assume that you have good people who are hardworking. And for them, objectives or key performance indicators are just helpful to them in saying, am I on track? Because I sure as heck want to be on track. I want to contribute because I'm a good person and I'm hardworking. I want to contribute to the success of of our joint enterprise. So it's less kind of motivating, getting them to stretch. It's more helping them keep track. Am I on target? Am I doing what I need to be doing to contribute?
There's a very funny story. I was speaking with a friend. She's a marketing major, and she's the head of marketing here in Dubai. And she was telling me that she works in strategic marketing. I was like, "What is strategic marketing? Sorry, strategic communication."
Yes.
And I was like, "What strategic communication means?" Like, Mahmoud, nobody really knows. I was like, "Dude, so I have this book, really good. So let's walk through them. What's the winning aspiration?" It was like, "We'd like our brand to be friendly but luxury." Okay, where to play? Like, what do you mean where to play? Okay, what are the persona that want to target?
Yes.
Or identify a very specific persona, and they were like, how to win. Like, what do you mean how to win? Yeah, how are you going to win in this strategic communication? And it was such a interesting experience for her because she was like, Mahmoud, no, nobody taught us this. Even strategic communication can, those 5 questions can really apply as well.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's one of the strengths of playing to win in the framework is really generalizable. It's just a set of things that, regardless of your situation, it's worth you having an answer to, and not just lollygagging. And strategic communications is a great example of putting strategy in front of something and assuming that A, people that's a good thing, or B, people know what you're talking about, or the like. They often don't, and it's back to this wastage. Like if this person that you're talking about didn't have a better answer to that question, she would be wasting many of the hours of many days doing busy stuff. And there's an infinite amount of busy work that any manager in the white collar world, there is no end to how much busy work you can do. It's always there, and so the question is, it's this signal and noise thing. If you want to make your life as a manager signal, not noise, and if you do, if you're a high signal person, you just rise up the ranks of your existing organization. You're more capable of going out and starting a company on your own. But you got to be a signal person, not a noise person.
So when I ask my friends, what's your favorite strategy books, the most common answer is Sun Tzu, The Art of War, which is it's an amazing book, have been written for so many years, so there's actual value to it. But what's the difference between business strategy and military strategy?
Well, I am also a fan of that. That and von Clausewitz's On War, I think, are, for any strategist, there are just so many gems in there to take away. So I love the great military thinkers, but it's sort of incomplete. So military tends to be about two things. The business equivalent being company and competitors. So it's us and them, right? So it's like, how big is our army? What weapons do we have versus theirs? Can we overwhelm them? Can we sneak around them? Whatever. It's us and them. And in the business world, there's a third super important element, and that's customers. You don't think terribly deeply about that in military strategy. You just assume that the politicians have sort of figured out, they sent us to war because these guys are trying to invade us, or we're trying to protect those people, or whatever. They did that. And our job in military strategy is to figure out us versus the competitors. In business, it's three, right? There's at least three big actors: the company, competitors, and customers. And the early days of strategy, there's an evolution in strategy. The early days of business strategy, and Bruce Henderson, the fantastic, super smart, legendary founder of BCG, is the godfather of business strategy, even before Mike Porter, because he started BCG in 1963. Mike Porter came out with his genius work in 1980. So he's the godfather of strategy. But I would argue the BCG version of strategy in that era was two C's, right? We're a company, we have competitors, we have this thing called the learning curve, that if we price ahead of the learning curve to get more cumulative volume, our costs will be lower than our competitors' costs, and so we'll be able to underprice them and keep on increasing our share advantage, which will increase our cumulative volume advantage. And we're done. And that arguably was until 1980, between 1963 and 1980. So two important decades in the world of strategy, which has only been around since 63. So it's only a little more than a half century old as a discipline, business strategy. There was some other stuff before, but it was planning. That was the birth of business strategy was Bruce Henderson. But we had to have this evolution, and Mike Porter's great contribution, in my view, was the addition of the customer to that. And so you could argue, if all Mike Porter said was low-cost strategy, you could have said he's just derivative of Bruce Henderson and BCG. But he said, no, there's another complete strategy that BCG and Bruce Henderson had, just wasn't in their conceptualization. It was, well, there are these people called customers, and if you can appeal to them in a really particular way that really meets their needs, you will be able to charge a price premium, and that's differentiation. So in 1980, the field changed, and that was Mike's great contribution, in my view. Even though people think it's five forces, it's generic strategy. No. It was adding the third C to the strategy kind of landscape. And so that's where military strategy fell short. Even though von Clausewitz said that, war is pursuing political ends by other means, he hints at it. But Mike Porter, in some sense, just said there's a third end. If you're not thinking about customers, you're not there. And so that's the advance of the world of business strategy over military strategy. Not because it's better, it's because the context is not completely the same. It's a little different context, and you needed to add that. But I think it's kind of a cool evolution, right? That from the world of military strategy, the great Sun Tzu, von Clausewitz's of the world, business thinkers said, hey, there's some principles here we can apply. They did. And then another brilliant man, Mike Porter, came along and said, and here's a further enhancement of that makes it more contextually appropriate for this use.
You wrote another interesting book, Opposable Mind. And so originally I'm product manager by training. So we need to have two very contrasting ideas in our head, which is basically one, we need to product discover what the people actually want to buy. And this is hard to scale and it's a very dirty process. And the other one is delivery. So you have to build a product that actually can scale really quickly. And spending time on product discovery and product delivery, it's one of the biggest headaches that we have. Why it's important for those impactful people to have those two opposable ideas in their mind all the time?
Well, it'll make their life a lot more enjoyable if they reframe it. And this is in part the purpose of that the book that you referred to and that's sitting here is what I try to do is get people to reframe that from it is a painful task. Because in some sense, that's what you were taught, right? You have a trade-off, a difficult trade-off, and it's painful and the like, and you got to deal with the pain of that and somehow come through on the other side. What I said is, should be the funnest thing and the biggest opportunity. If you just treat it that way and you say, gee, what interesting things could I learn from discovery? And what other cool things could I learn from delivery? And put those two things together in a new and different way that nobody's ever contemplated before. What an adventure, what a thinking adventure. How much fun could this be? And that's what I try to convince people is think about it that way, and you'll come up with something great. And I'll give you an example. Do you want a little example from my life as a dean? So I was immediately suspect at Rotman when I became a dean because I'd come from Harvard Business School, and Harvard Business School is considered a teaching-oriented school that pays a lot of attention to teaching. Now, it turns out that they got so much money that they are also number one in research, but they're thought of as teaching, and my faculty was, oh no, this teaching-oriented guy is going to come, and there's this terrible trade-off. This is how they saw it in their minds. They say, if you're research-oriented, that's the only way to attract great faculty who will improve the reputation of the school and the school's faculty by doing more research and becoming famous and or you can be teaching oriented. But the negative to that research oriented is the students, they don't really much care about that, and they don't really like that. And actually, the professors always are trying to beg off their teaching responsibilities to do more research, and so the students won't like it much. But you just have to deal with that. Or you can be teaching, oriented, and then the students will love it and everything, but you won't be able to attract any faculty. The good faculty will all leave because they want to be in a research-oriented place. And so, Roger, what are you going to be, research-oriented or teaching-oriented? So they challenged me with that, and they were trying to intimidate me into saying I'll be research-oriented, and worried that because of my pedigree, I would be teaching-oriented. So I just took it as a puzzle to solve, and I sort of observed early on, and one of the interesting things I observed, and you had to be curious to be able to come up with it. You got to be curious, and I said, okay, professors are. Because we were a research-oriented school, our teaching scores were just terrible with students when I arrived there, and so and it was so bad that you do teach student evaluations of teaching, and it was out of 7. It was a 7-point scale, and if you got a 6 out of 7, there was a ceremony at the holiday party between the semesters where you would come up and get given a lovely gold pen, expensive, again, a pen by the dean.
Okay.
And my first year, there were like 4 pens that I gave out, and so we've got this situation where we've got with this more research oriented faculty, and I said they're always trying to come and beg off courses and say, my research center is so busy, I need to have fewer courses. You're supposed to teach 5 half courses, like 2 in the fall and 3 in the spring, or vice versa. I can only do 3, and blah, 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 blah. But there was this mystery, which was that they would come to me to complain about not being allowed to teach PhD courses. Like, my faculty won't let me, I don't get my turn. And I'm like, okay, so they don't not like teaching. What is it about teaching PhDs that they like so much? Well, the answer is the only thing you teach PhDs is your research specialty and research interest. Mm-hmm. It's totally attuned to that. So it's actually doing more research by way of teaching. Mm-hmm. And so I say, okay, here's the solution. I'm going to say I'm not deciding on either teaching or research. We're going to have better both, way better both. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take the course calendar, and I'm going to go to the faculty and say, for all second-year electives, I'll just one at a time, is this your research interest? Is this your research interest? Is this your research interest? If nobody, it's a second-year course is in existence, and it's not in anybody's research interest, I'm tearing it out of the calendar. And I physically did that a few times. I said, nobody's interested in this. And they're like, you're canceling a marketing course. Yeah, it's nobody's research interest. And then in first-year courses, I said, I actually don't care, because it didn't actually matter what we taught in marketing. I said, the only thing that students care about, mm-hmm. right? You think about it. Think back to what professors did you like? I would argue you liked the professors who were truly passionate about what they were teaching.
True. Yes.
It didn't matter what the subject was.
Absolutely true.
No correlation with your particular interest in the subject. It was all, were they passionate? So I said, all they want is somebody passionate, right? And then they'll learn something rather than sitting there and having it go in one ear out the other. And so I said, in first year, you can take the finance course, like first year finance course. You don't have to teach everything about finance. Teach your passion. And they're like, we can't do that. We can't,
oh, wow.
We can't do that. Okay. We have to. I said, says who? Says who? Nobody's saying that. They say you have to teach a first year finance. The AACSB that accredits you have to have a finance course taught by a tenure stream faculty member. It doesn't say what it has to include. So you teach your research passions. That's all. And if you teach anything else, I'm going to get super mad at you. And the only second-year courses that we're going to offer are somebody's research passion. They thought I was nuts.
That's such a new way to think about it.
Yeah, a new way to think.
Great plug.
And so it took a year or two to kind of adjust, because they were like, seriously? And they would come to me with first-year course curriculum, like for the marketing course, and say, can I really teach this? I said, yes, absolutely. So what happened on the basis of that, right, our teaching and research ratings went through the roof simultaneously.
Oh, wow, okay.
So within about 5 years, there were so many professors. The competition came of not could I get A6. It was in all 5 of my courses could I get a 6 or above. And we had a big screen in the atrium where we did it. And we had like, by year 5, there were like 153 courses that were taught with a 6 or above. And you wanted to be the professor who had 5 courses next to your name as we rolled it on the screen. We got rid of the pens. We couldn't give away that many pens. So our teaching ratings went through the roof,
really?
Absolutely insanely through the roof. And on research, we went from being irrelevant completely to at the very end of my time as dean, we ended up tied for 3rd in the global research ratings. The Financial Times, objectively outside, does it. Harvard, Wharton, we were tied with Berkeley. For 3rd, ahead of Stanford, ahead of Sloan, ahead of Chicago, ahead of Duke.
That's an unbelievable impact.
From nothing. And it's because I took the seeming horrible trade-off, right? Horrible trade-off, and said, this is a puzzle. This is a puzzle to solve. And there's a solution out there. It's just nobody's ever found it. And you can get better teaching and better research at the same time. And it became the place that everybody wanted to come because I was surprisingly sort of viewed as this totally research-oriented dean. And I did something that no other dean did either. I met with every professor one time a year to sit through their research agenda. What are you working on? What can the school do to help you and everything? So we got this reputation for being a research powerhouse, but we were a teaching powerhouse at the same time. Anybody can do that on any situation. You just have to have that different mindset, and then learn the tools of thinking through the integrative challenge.
There's a lot of people struggle from short-term benefits or long-term thinking.
Yeah.
And basically you found a very creative way to solve it.
Yeah. And that's it. There are some of these eternal trade-offs in the world of business. One is short-term versus long-term. That's never not going to be around. One is centralization versus decentralization. It's never not going to be around. And I just say, don't think about it as a mean, nasty trade-off. Think about it as a puzzle to solve in your own unique way for your own context. Would have mine been the perfect solution for every business school? Kind of no. We had an interesting context. One, we were crappy on both. And so the sky was the limit. That made it easier than if we were awesome at one already. So people were willing to experiment. 2, we were growing like crazy. We grew 10x in revenues during my time as dean, right? I'm a business guy. I'm a business guy.
10x, that's an insane number.
Yeah, it is an insane number. But so we were in this hiring mode. We hired more than 100 tenure stream professors in my time as dean. So I knew that if we established a reputation for that, we could then hire all sorts of great people, because while many other, even like super rich schools like Harvard or Stanford, unless they've got a spot open, somebody retired or somebody left, they can't hire, right? We hired between 7 and 12 professors every year that I was dean, so we were always on. So I wanted a strategy that was consistent with our growth. So there aren't. You could say, Roger, just solve the short-term, long-term problem and tell people. Solve the centralization, decentral problem, and just tell people. No, it's got to be contextually appropriate, and it'll be a different answer, but it's the same questions. But people who listen to me on this front have a happier life, right? Because they spend less time being angst-ridden over the trade-offs that they're facing. They just say, "This is cool. This is cool. I got to think about this, and when I've thought about it enough, there will be an answer, and then we'll go on." And basically, and this is teachable. We teach this to the kids as young as kindergarten.
Oh wow!
We've got we set up a program called I Think, which is integrative thinking for mainly K through 12.
Okay.
And little kids can do this. This is like art. It's beaten out of people in the educational system by the time they're a teenager, like totally beaten out of them. Integrative thinking is beaten out of them, right?
It's very
you
empowering.
have to make trade-offs. You have to make trade-offs. You have to get the exact right answer.
Yes.
No. And these kids are,
Oh, wow.
are just great. Yeah, it's just great to watch them come up
Really?
with integrative solutions. Yeah.
Oh, God. One of the things that is very interesting, I found very interesting about you, yes, you're a thought leader in strategy. You know how to do strategy. We've consulted with, again, A.G. Lafley. You've worked with the top executive. But what's even more impressive, you know how to write about strategy. And you did not write anything until your mid-40s, and you wrote several books, over 200.
13.
Over 200 articles. And why writing is so important for you?
Yeah, it was always important to me for some reason or another. I mean, I had a great English high school teacher, William Exley, who I give massive credit to.
Oh.
He's also a few years after me, Malcolm Gladwell's history
Really?
teacher. Yeah, Malcolm and my younger brother were in the same class at
Same
the
class.
same high school.
Okay.
And my brother's a Harvard Russian history professor. And their other classmate ended his career, he's retired now, as the editorial page editor of the New York Times.
What school is this? That's amazing.
Yeah, Myra District Secondary School in a town of 7,000 in the middle of nowhere. What's the common denominator? William Exley, fantastic English teacher. So he sort of taught me he was super precise. No matter how good you wrote an essay or something, there would be red marks on it about how to make it better. So he was awesome. So I always wrote. I just wrote privately.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was at Monitor Company, I was known as the person within Monitor who wrote by far and away the most. I would write memos to the CEO. Here's how you should think about this. Here's how you should think about that, whatever. And I became known as that, and people would email me to say, Roger, have you ever written anything about this? And I put them on a folder on my computer called Greatest Hits, because a Greatest Hits was just something that was asked for enough times I didn't want to go back to the client file to find it. I put it in that file. But this is one of the things I give credit to my life as academic, right? Which is that I just discovered something that was obvious. Like so many things in life are totally obvious after the fact. You're almost embarrassed. But I realized, an academic's job is to write publicly. You publish articles for the greater world to read. And then I realized I don't do that. But I write privately, and when I was in that context, I said, I should be writing publicly. And off I went, and I wrote 13 books, nine while I was dean. I didn't know any business school dean in the world who wrote one book during their time as dean.
Not just regular books, bestsellers. I have to highlight this.
and yeah, I've written. I think maybe now closing in on 1,000 articles. I've got this. I've just a preview of Monday morning. I know you read my Playing to Win Practitioner Insights series on Medium on this coming Monday. It's going to be an article talking about having written in that series 5 Playing to Wins. So Playing to Win is 67,000 words, and I've just, with this one, will go over 335,000 words. So I've written in the last slightly under 4 years 5 Playing to Wins. And I'm going to explain how.
By the way, your Medium articles are one of my favorite because there's not a single question I can think of. So, for example, I was thinking, what does Chief Strategy Officer does? You have an article about that. Yeah. You have the OKRs. You have an article about that. There is not a single question I can think. I already have an article about that. So it was a treasure trove.
Well, thank you. So I'm going to explain how in this article. This is my preview of this article. I'm going to explain in this article how it happens, and it's the interaction between me and clients and me and students.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I say something, And that leads them to say, well, Roger, why? Or what about this? Or what about that? And then I realize I have a way of thinking about that. But if you'd have asked me in advance of that interaction, I wouldn't have known it was there in my cranium somewhere. But the interactions tend to pull out and focus on something where I say, oh, okay, I could write about that. And so that's how, and I almost think of it unfair, these business academics sitting in their office trying to dream up research ideas. People come to me and say, Roger, where do you get all your research ideas? And I don't even think about research ideas. I literally don't think, I just have, I have a backlog. It's like planes circling the airport. I have a backlog of things that I want to write because it's this interaction. And that's why I do think that to whatever success, to whatever extent I have been a success, the success comes from interaction. I interact with students, students when I teach them at clients, and in the terms of Don Shern, who's again one of my favorite late academics, he talked about being a reflective practitioner. Right, like people think if you go to a driving range and hit 10,000 balls, you're going to be a better golfer. No, it's only if you go there, attempt to do something, see how you've deviated from that, make corrections. You're reflective about it, and often you having a golf coach there to have you say, "Oh, Roger, you were leaning a little too far, on that, or your feet are not placed for the shot that you want to make." So I'm a reflective practitioner. I go out in the world of practice, I reflect on it, and that gives me almost an infinite amount of material to write about. And that's what I'll talk about on Monday.
But you dive so deep. Do you have the idea, then you write about it, or you kind of discover the idea while writing? Do you use the tool as a way to, do you use writing as a way to think?
Yes.
Really?
For sure, absolutely, because you put something on paper, and then you say, that's not really what I mean, or that's not really clear enough. So the act of writing is the act of thinking and refining, and as you edit, people think editing is a bug. Editing is a feature. You edit to keep on refining the idea until it's in its purest form that you can come up with, and you put it out there. But then, if I go back to Playing to Win, there's all sorts of things I would rewrite in this way or that way based on knowledge. But that was the state of my thinking art and AGs at that time.
I promise your wife that we're gonna be there on time, and
Okay.
thank you so much. But do you have any message for our audience, where they can find you, where they can reach you? How can we be helpful to you?
Well, one way you can be helpful is look for my articles either on Medium platform, but I also post them on LinkedIn and X, and write questions to say, Roger, here's something I was wondering about. I like that. I like when people say, or have you written about this or that? Sometimes the answer is, yep, I did an article on OKRs. Other times it's, no, I haven't. That's great. And I have a list of reader requests. So I would say follow me on Medium, X, or LinkedIn to see the articles, and give me questions. You don't have to have answers. Just questions. That would be helpful. And the other thing is people are too shy in one respect. Lots of people sort of think I wouldn't want to be bugged by that. They think of that as bugging me. It doesn't bug me.
That's why I was so shy to ask you questions. Yes, online.
Yeah. No. And I try. I hope as you watch, I don't sort of say, well, that's a stupid question. Or no, I don't. I try to be. I don't try. I just am respectful, because people deserve the respect, and so that's the way to follow me and to interact. I learn by interacting with other people. Your own brain can only be so big or powerful alone. Your brain, if it's connected in sort of a network to other people's brains is way more powerful.
Roger, that was a great podcast. Thank you so much for making the time, and we're definitely gonna do this next year.
Sure.
Yes.
I'd be happy to do it again. Thank you.
Thanks so much. If you want your free copy, make sure to subscribe to my channel and subscribe to my newsletter linked below.